You're listening to the Bar Business Podcast, where every week your host, Chris Schneider, brings you information, strategies, and news on the bar industry, giving you the competitive edge you need to start working on your bar rather than in your bar.
Welcome to this week's edition of the Bar Business Podcast. As many of you probably noticed, we didn't do an episode last week, and that's because I had the launch of my book, How to Make Top Shelf Profits in the Bar Business, and that just got a little crazy. And so I was working on a bunch of book stuff. Also, I've been working with an amazing guy working on an audiobook version for those of you that would prefer to listen to books. But if you want to check out the book, again, it's called How to Make Top Shelf Profits in the Bar Business. There is a link to the Amazon page in the show notes, and we have Kindle versions, Kindle Unlimited. So if you have that, you can read for free or included with your subscription, I guess we should say. Also, there's paperbacks and hardcovers there, and we should have the audio book out in the next week or two. If you want to check that out, there's some really, really great information in there, and it really goes into all the topics that we cover on the podcast in some more detail, and there's some things in the book that we haven't had a chance to get to in the podcast yet. And thinking of things we haven't gotten to yet in the podcast, I had a really interesting conversation with a gentleman this week through the Facebook group. So if you haven't had a chance to join, head over to Facebook, look up Bar Business Nation. It's a private group, so there are a couple questions and you have to apply to join. But we do that just to keep the spammers and the crazy folks out of the group. What we're trying to do is build a community of like-minded bar owners that can all help each other and focus on success. We all only know so much. Everyone has great ideas. Everyone has unique perspectives. So the purpose of that group is to help build on those perspectives, build on those unique ideas, and allow us all to be more successful by working together and creating a community that supports and helps one another. So if you think that's a great idea, head over to the Facebook group, Bar Business Nation, apply to join. We'll get you in there, and we are having some great conversations about what's going on in the bar business and ideas for bar owners and what can be done. But this week, we're going to do the first of a two-part series. This series is going to be on a topic that I have neglected to date, and that's been somewhat intentional. It's not my favorite thing, if I'm honest. It's a very important part of having a bar, and that is marketing. And so we're going to do this in two parts. This week, we're going to cover all the marketing that is essentially not tech-driven, because I think there's a lot of emphasis put on Facebook, Snapchat, your different social medias, websites, review sites, all of that. And all of that is hugely important. We'll cover that next week. This week, though, we're going to talk about things that are not tech-based, things that you can do to drive customers into your establishment, and ways that you can interact with your community to help build your business. I think with a lot of bars, we look at marketing as online marketing, and that is a very important, key, crucial thing that you must do. Don't think by any means I'm saying you can ignore Facebook, because you can't. But what I am saying is there's more to marketing than just online. There's more to marketing than just what we normally look at. And a lot of this is about building a relationship with your community, building a relationship with your guests, leveraging that to drive sales. So when it comes to marketing, I do want to say this up front. There are lots of opinions. There are lots of correct answers. There are lots of wrong answers for anything in marketing. And probably one of the reasons why it's taken me this long to get to marketing, even though it's a huge topic, is because different bars are going to have different results with different things. If you are a bar in a college town, you probably need to be on Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok. If you are a blue-collar bar that has an older crowd, TikTok's probably not going to do much for you. So that's the thing about marketing. Remember, it's not one size fits all. Not every option works for every bar. You need to look at your demographic, look at where they are, look at what they do in their lives, and adjust your marketing to fit them. And that's one of the difficulties that we'll talk about next week when we get into the online part of this. But when we're talking about the not online, we're going to talk about 4 key parts of your marketing plan. Developing good word of mouth, internal or four corners marketing, the marketing that you do inside your bar for your bar, good ways to interact with your community to market there, and merch. Because merch is something that gets overlooked. Merch is something that gets pushed aside, but it's a huge thing. It's both a revenue center and a marketing program. People pay you to be walking billboards. You need to do it. But we'll get to that at the end. To start with here, I just want to talk a little bit more about the basics of marketing. And in this case, the idea that everyone wants your money. One thing that is true in the bar business, for those of you that have not been in it yet, you don't know how true this is. For those of you in it, this is just going to make you realize how annoying every weekday is. And the thing is, you will have people come in and sell you on everything. You will have people come into your bar trying to sell you everything from fish to text message marketing. And those people that come in, most of the marketing people, I hate to say it, some of them have great products, but most of them really are not going to help you. They're out pushing a product. That's what they do. And they do a really good job at it normally. But just because their marketing works for some, or just because they say they have a great marketing system, doesn't mean you're going to find great results. That doesn't mean don't try it. But just be aware, most people are going to try to sell you things that aren't actually going to produce for you. And one of the places that we see that a lot nowadays is print marketing, broadcast marketing. Things like cable TV, radio, newspapers, magazines. Those aren't as influential as they used to be. Doesn't mean you can't make money doing them. Doesn't mean they can't drive people into your bar. If you have the right publication and the right demographic, a print ad can work great. In particular, think about a small town or a village like where I live. There's 15,000 people in the whole county. We have a weekly newspaper. Doesn't even come out every day. There's not that much news that happens. But that paper goes out to something like 60% of the households in the county. So if you put a print ad in that paper, it's short. I mean, even though it's every week, it's only about 10, 12 pages long. People will see those ads. It can actually be good advertising in that case. But if you have a bar in New York City, putting an ad in the New York Times probably is going to cost you way more money than it's going to ever drive revenue. But the thing about that is, unless you have something that people are bringing in, unless you have a coupon that they're cutting out of that paper, out of that magazine and bringing it in, you'll never know your ROI. So that's part of the problem with print ads. Same with broadcast. You can put out a bunch of radio ads. You don't know if those radio ads are driving people in or not, unless you do like infomercials do and say, hey, you get a discount with this code, and then use different codes. You can track ROI that way. But in general, broadcast print advertising is not where you want to be. And I will tell you guys a story because this kind of encapsulates the whole. With my bar, I was in Indianapolis. Indianapolis, obviously, the football team is the Colts. I get a call from a guy one day. He says, I want to sell you an ad in the Colts yearbook. I was bored. I decided I'd listen to him and see what he had to say. Well, he runs me through this whole spiel, and a business card size ad's $1,200. I said, well, man, I'm a little bar. I'm not going to pay $1,200 for this ad. And he asked me a really smart question that I actually answered and probably shouldn't have. But he asked me, he goes, what would you pay for this ad? I said, I don't know, man. I'll give you $450 for it. And he goes, and he just kind of laughs. He says, I don't think there's any way I can get agreement from my management to sell you this ad for $450 for selling for $1,200. I said, well, cool, dude. Sorry we couldn't do business. Hope you have a great day. That was that. I forgot about it entirely. Well, about a month later, I get a call from the guy. He says, hey, would you still do $450 for that ad? We're printing in 2 days, and I don't have all the spots filled. And because I'm a nice guy, because I said $450, that was the number I threw out to him that I would pay. And he was offering it to me at that. I said, okay, fine, I'll do it. So I put this business card size ad in the Colts yearbook that's sold at the stadium, at all home games, and at their store and online and all of that. I don't know that $450 generated anything for me. Maybe it generated a lot. Maybe it generated nothing. I don't know if anyone even saw it or knew that it existed. I never heard anyone mention it. So was that $450 a good ad spend? Probably not. But I can't tell you whether it was or not because I have no clue. And that is the problem with print. You don't know what's going on. So anytime we're looking at marketing, anytime you're thinking about the people that come into your bar and try to sell you different marketing ideas, remember what we care about is our ROI, and be careful about getting into marketing programs, things, running ads, whatever, where you cannot measure ROI, where it's impossible to tell what you're actually doing. Let's jump into some of the main topics we want to cover today, starting with word of mouth. So word of mouth is really the most powerful marketing tool you have. Because if you really think about it, nobody cares what you post on Facebook. Nobody cares what the online sites say if they have a friend that says, hey, you need to go check this place out, right? You could have all 1-star reviews on Yelp for some reason and still be a good bar. And if there's word of mouth that says, hey, go here and grab a drink and a bite to eat, people will go there, grab a drink and a bite to eat because we all trust people we know more than random strangers on the internet. So word of mouth is what matters the most. It's the most critical to your success. But the catch-22 here is you can't influence word of mouth. Word of mouth has zero ability to be controlled. You cannot do anything to influence. But what can you do to influence word of mouth? And that is give every guest a great experience every day by sticking to your fundamentals, by executing your concept flawlessly, by giving people great service, by having an energetic team, by having good training programs in place, by having good menus. You will build positive word of mouth. So word of mouth, good word of mouth should be the natural consequence of good work. And if you do a good job, that word of mouth should just happen. And it is the most powerful thing. So as weird as it sounds, my number one rule of marketing is make sure you're doing everything correct. Make sure you're giving people a great experience. Because I think that is the most influential thing that will impact your marketing, impact bringing new business into your bar. Now, something you have to think about with people, and there have been a lot of studies on this. A lot of them are older. A lot of this is pre-internet or early internet, so it's been somewhat distorted. But the general rule of thumb is if I have a bad experience at a bar, I'm going to talk to people. I have friends. I'm going to tell 10 of them I had a bad experience. And they're likely to tell 10 people each. So this is word of mouth. Obviously the internet's going to multiply this drastically because people have a lot larger reach on the internet than they do in real life. I talk to more people on this podcast every week than I actually talk to in my life every week. So internet does change this. But the point is still, one bad experience to one person leads to 100 negative word of mouth interactions. The problem is if you give someone a great experience, if they had the best time at your bar that they've ever had at any bar ever, statistically they'll tell 2 or 4 people that'll tell 2 or 4 people. So a good experience gets you word of mouth advertising to 16 or 20 people. Bad experience gets you word of mouth advertising about how bad you are to 100 people. And that's why it's essential if you want good word of mouth, if you want things to work in your favor, if you want people just to come in organically, you have to provide a great experience. That is the key to all the rest of your marketing. Now, it is important to stay here. You can change your word of mouth. Not every bar gets stuck with the same word of mouth they always had. When I first bought my bar, it was called 86th Street Pub, and it was known among some groups as the Shady 80 because there were some things that were going on there that were kind of shady. Not in a bad way, but, it was not always the best environment. After about a month of owning the bar, I had driven most of those folks out. The shady part of the business was gone. I didn't change the name. I didn't have to do anything like that. And I drove out the shady part of the business. About 6 months later, the reputation started to change. The word of mouth started to change. So word of mouth is not forever, but it takes a concerted effort to change it if it's in the wrong direction. And sometimes all that means is that you just have to do better. You have to make sure your bar is better. Maybe raise the lights a little bit, kick out people that are dealing drugs, all that sort of good stuff. But sometimes if the reputation is so bad, if the word of mouth is so against you, what you have to do is rebrand, rename the bar, move some chairs around. And that gives you a clean break in word of mouth from whatever history exists in that location or with that bar. But you don't always have to do that. Sometimes you just do a good job, people notice, and you can be rewarded for it. So beyond word of mouth, the next thing I always focus on is marketing within the bar. And so internal marketing is a term that gets used a lot outside of the bar business to refer to marketing to one's own employees, marketing your goods, your services, what you do to them so that they are giving good word of mouth to the world. That's great. Internal marketing still can mean that in the bar business. I expand that a little bit when I talk about internal marketing. And I like to include things like table tents, posters, anything in your bar that is showing your marketing to your employees and guests. Because you will have marketing items in your bar that speak to both of them, that they all see, that influences the knowledge of both your guests and your team. And when it comes to internal marketing, the thing is you have the space. You have it there. You have walls you can put a poster on. You have tables you can put table tents on. It's not any issue to be able to use a regular office printer nowadays and some good paper and print table tents yourself in-house. You don't need to hire someone to do it. You don't need a print shop to do it. You can do it at your desk. And so using table tents, using posters as a way to promote events, things going on in your bar is crucial. Because the thing is, if you think about you're having a live band the next week, or you're doing karaoke next week, or you have a new food special, Is your server, especially when they're busy, going to be able to talk about all that to every guest? No. Does that guest necessarily pay attention to your TikTok, your Facebook, your Instagram, whatever online stuff you're doing? No. But they're there in front of you. You have a captive audience. You need to make sure they know what's going on at your bar. So internal marketing is important. Start with table tents. That, I think, is the easiest part to pinch off first. And generally with table tents, I have always been a fan of the leatherette 3-sided ones. You can do the plastic double-sided ones. You can get them for free from suppliers if they're logoed, if you ask nice enough. Maybe even you can get a supplier to buy them for you for free that are not logoed for any brand, that are just plain table tents. Ask. But you need to get table tents. You need to get them on the table. If you do use the plastic ones, make sure you have enough that when one breaks, you can throw it out and put out a new one. What you don't want to have is table tents that look bad on your tables. You don't want to diminish your experience in your bar by having something that's dirty, that's gross, that's broken, that's not right. So make sure your table tents are always kept in great condition. And regardless of what kind of table tent you have, it should be part of your side work. Wipe down the table, wipe down the table tent. Keep those clean. Keep those good. Keep that as a positive marketing piece. Now, when it comes to posters, you can print those yourself and put them on the wall. You can also get almost every liquor rep in the world to make you a poster. Now, you got to be a little bit careful because obviously they're going to push their brands. Obviously, they have their agenda as well. Patron is not going to pay for a poster in your bar that doesn't advertise Patron. That's pretty obvious. There are free ways to get posters. The thing about posters is you have to be really careful to avoid devaluing your bar by putting posters around. And there are all sorts of different ways you can do this. Personally, I had a bar that had a front room that was the dining room with the bar in it, and a back room that was a game room with pool tables and all of that. I always kept all the posters in my game room. I've seen other people that have bought frames and put them on the wall and made their reps make posters that fit the frames so that they don't just have raw paper on the wall. I think that's a great idea. If you have wood paneling that is about the size of a poster, make them make the poster to fit the wood paneling so it looks framed. There are all sorts of things you can do. But with posters, fantastic way to communicate specials, events, everything. And you need that so that your guests are aware of it. Just make sure they fit into your concept. Make sure they fit into the overall feel of your bar. Obviously, if you're something like a high-end gastropub, posters probably aren't your thing. Maybe in the entryway you can get away with one or two, but inside on the walls, you're not doing that. So always think about marketing, but your brand. So if it doesn't fit your concept, if it doesn't fit your brand, it doesn't need to be in your bar, period, end of story. But that can be a great way to market. If you have a higher end brand or if you have a cool neighborhood bar and you don't want to do posters, one thing that I have always loved is chalkboards. Chalkboards are a great way to communicate, hey, here's what's going on, here's our next event, here's what we have going on every day of the week. And chalkboards work best when you have somebody on your team that is a little bit artistic. Maybe they can draw some cool cocktail pictures, maybe they can draw some people. Maybe they can draw a cute dog. It really doesn't matter, but a little bit of art combined with some cool lettering on your chalkboard can go a very, very long way. And it really provides your guests with something cool, different. It's unique to your concept. It shows off the talents of your team, and it helps your marketing and helps people know what's going on. So it's great. Line here, make sure you have things in your bar that people see, that lets them know what's going on, that tells them the specials, that explains what you're doing. That will help bring people back into your bar on those nights. Internal marketing is very important. Just internal marketing, the next thing I want to talk about is community involvement. And community involvement is key to marketing your bar. You want to be seen as a positive member of your community. And there are some great reasons for this. First and foremost, depending on where you are. If you're in the Bible Belt, if you're in the South of the United States, or if internationally you're in a more religious area, maybe you don't have a lot of people that drink there. Maybe you have a lot of people in the local community that are against alcohol. A great way to get rid of those objections, a great way to show that you care about the community as a whole is to be involved in your community. And you guys have heard me say before that I think the wonderful thing about a bar is it becomes a microcosm of the community around it. You are part of the community. You are a gathering place for the community, which is great. But there are those in the community that don't like you, and the way that you can win them over, the way that you can start to not have people in your community object to a bar if they just object to the concept is by being involved in your community. Have community events, have business groups, host them at your bar. And so there are some really great ways to do this. One thing I always like doing is if you have a small chamber or local small business group in your area, join it. Interact with those people. Get to know them. Work on having some of those events at your establishment. And when you do, give them free drinks, give them free food, because that will, A, encourage them to bring people in, and B, it gives you people to show off to. It gives you people that are movers in your area, that are other business owners, that have connections, and it shows them what a cool establishment you have and the things that you can pull off. So always be willing to host a community event like that and be part of those groups, because that's how you get to host those events. Another great way that you can be involved in your community with the similar people, but in a slightly different way, is if you have local business networking groups. So not a chamber, not a nonprofit per se, but just say a networking event. And there are tons of networking groups all over the world. It depends on where you are, which groups exist, but have those groups at your bar. Invite them in. And some of them are paid events, so you can do drink tickets. You can actually make money on these. But have the networking at your bar. That will encourage those people to try your bar. And again, these are business people in the community. A lot of times with these networking events, you're getting a lot of salespeople. Guess what salespeople need? They need places to go to lunch. They need places to take people, to have a drink and talk about a deal. Make your bar that place by hosting the networking events. Make your bar that place by building relationships with those sales folks so they have the opportunity and the knowledge to bring people in. Another thing you can do, and this is one of my favorite, and I will tell you right now, there is no money in this in the short term. One of my favorite ways to market and build a relationship with the community is to host community charity groups in the off hours. And so what do I mean by that? Say you have a Rotary Club, a Lions Club, anything like that. I used to host a Toastmasters some days at my bar, but I would always do it early. So a lot of these groups are morning groups. They're meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning. Perfect. Have them come in at 8. Nobody else is in your bar. You're not even open. Give them some coffee. Give them some drinks, not alcoholic, but coffee, soda, water, iced tea. Maybe get them some bagels or some donuts or something. You can buy them down the street and just let them use the space. You don't really have to do much as far as service for them is concerned. You don't really have to do much as far as waiting on them, right? You're setting out some stuff. You have 30 or 40 bucks in the whole thing. And you're just giving some people some coffee and some water. And like I said, maybe some donuts or something to have their meeting for their club at your bar. This will generate, again, zero immediate revenue. You're not even open. They can't buy something from you if they want it. But what it does do is it builds community goodwill. And again, those are the sorts of people that talk to a lot of folks. Those are the sorts of people that will build word of mouth. And if they say, hey, look, I don't know, I've never been to this bar when they've been open, but we keep having these meetings there, and the owner's super nice, and he always gives us coffee, and he buys us donuts and lets us use the space for free, and that saves our club $75 every time we meet every month, and it allows us to help the community more. That's great. That's the kind of word of mouth you want. And you get that just by letting them use your venue, use your space before you're even open. It has zero impact on your business, costs you almost nothing. And the amount of community goodwill you can build from that is amazing. Now, community business groups, great opportunity. Networking groups, great opportunity. Social clubs, before hours, fantastic opportunity. There are a few things, though, that are community events that you probably want to avoid. The first one is don't sponsor events marketed towards children as a bar. Even if they are coming after you for money, don't do it. And the reason why I say that is if you have those folks in your community that may not like bars, which every community has a few, they're probably at that kid's event. They're probably going to talk about how terrible you are for trying to market alcohol to children. I'm sure that's not what you intended to do. I'm sure that's not what you were doing. That's how they're going to perceive it. That's going to be the word of mouth. Don't do it. Now, there's one caveat to this. If you have an event focused towards children, but there's an adult area, say it's a baseball tournament, but there's a little area to the side for the adults to go have a beer and hang out, sponsor that area. Don't put your advertising where the kids are. Put your advertising in the 21 plus area or the drinking age area. If you're outside the United States and you have in a place where you can drink before 21. So don't market to people that can't buy your product. Market to people that can buy your product. And if it's an event mostly aimed towards people that cannot buy your product, in this case, minor children, market it in an adults area where the kids aren't, so that you can capitalize on a children's event as a bar. But if there is an adult area, just stay away from it. It's not worth it. The other thing of community involvement I would avoid, and there will be people that disagree with me on this, I am sure, but I would avoid sponsoring sports teams. And I sponsored a lot of them. Softball leagues, I sponsored semi-pro football. That one was really fun. I didn't make any money, but it was a fun experience. So if you're doing it for an experience, if you're doing it because you like the guys, because you want to go watch games, great. But if you think that sponsoring the local softball team is going to drive you in a lot of revenue, it probably won't. I've never seen those deals really work in favor of bar owners, with one exception here, which is if it's a softball team, say it's a slow pitch team made up of a bunch of your regulars that are at your bar already, that all know each other through your bar, and that's why they're in this softball league together, you better sponsor them. You already have them. They're your regulars. It's just giving a little bit back to the people that keep your rent paid, keep your lights on. That you do. And you want to give them uniforms that have your logo on it. You want to go all out. If it's formed within your bar, whether it's with your staff, with your team that works for you, forming a team, or it's with your regulars forming a team for some sport, that you want to be involved in. But if it's some guy that comes off the street and says, hey, look, you need to sponsor my volleyball team. We do all this stuff. We'll put your logo on everything. We'll come in here after every game. Generally, that's not worth your money. But if it starts in your bar, if it involves people directly, intimately tied to your bar, you better sponsor it. You better show your team and or your customers how much you value them. Now, moving on to the final part that we're going to cover today in our two-part marketing series, merchandise. Merch is hugely important. I don't know any other way that you get people to pay you for the opportunity to advertise for you. Because that's really what merch is. You sell somebody a t-shirt with your logo on it, guess what they're going to do? They're going to go wear that t-shirt out in public. They are advertising your bar for you, and they paid you for the ability to do that. Merchandise is amazing in that way. Now, a few things, though, with merchandise. Oftentimes, people only consider t-shirts, and t-shirts are important. T-shirts are kind of the bread and butter. T-shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, those sorts of things. Hats. That's what everyone does. But go beyond that. Do mugs. Do glassware. You can do pens with your logo on it. It's great to sign checks. People steal them. Works fine. That's not merch you're making money on. You're giving it away. But it's the same thing. But you can even go beyond that. Some of the best merch I ever purchased for my bar, and this was not stuff that I was charging for, this I was giving away for free, were ice scrapers to give to people in the winter and tire pressure gauges to give to people in the summer. And you're thinking, why the hell would you give out ice scrapers and tire pressure gauges to advertise your bar? And the reason is because in the winter, every time you leave work and there's ice on your car, if you live in a place where you get ice on cars, you're scraping your windshield. So now, every time you scrape your windshield, you see the logo for that bar. It's after work. You want to grab a drink on the way home, you already know where you're going. It works. Tire pressure gauges actually work the same way. So you can be innovative with what you're giving people. I did bandanas, coasters, koozies, t-shirts, mugs, ice scrapers, flashlights. I did pretty much anything you can think of over the years. And it all more or less works. Now, when it comes to your t-shirts, when it comes to your clothing, mugs, those sorts of things that you're actually going to sell, not merch that you're giving away, you need to focus on having good designs. And too many bars, when they go to do merch, they just put their logo on a t-shirt. Cool. Logo on the t-shirt, tagline on the back. It's a great shirt. It's a shirt every bar should do. But it is not necessarily the best option you have. It needs to be part of your offering, but that can't be all of your offering. And so nowadays, it is so easy. Go online, go to a freelance site, Upwork, Fiverr, pick one. Go onto Canva, do it yourself. But go on the internet, find a freelancer, find somebody that specializes in t-shirt design, and have them design a really cool t-shirt for you. Once I started doing that, my merch sales went through the roof because I suddenly had awesome graphics. I had great shirts. I had great mugs. I had great products. And that really allowed me to have t-shirts that people wear more often. The cooler it is, the better the design, the more people enjoy the shirt itself, the more they're going to wear it. So a logo is great. A logo might get worn doing yard work. But if you have some cool graphics, if you have funny slogans, anything on that graphic t-shirt that's going to help it sell, they will wear it more. They'll wear it in public more. They are a better walking billboard for you. And yes, they paid you for the t-shirt, but your real value when someone buys a t-shirt is giving them a product they will wear day after day after day in public and market you to other people because of it. Along the lines of making sure you have a great design, make sure the actual t-shirt you're buying is good. So many times I see bars that have either these super thin paper cheap t-shirts or old school 100% cotton, scratchy, heavy, burlap sack feeling t-shirts. Nobody wants to wear that. Buy a good t-shirt. Spend the money. And you're going to say, well, I can get these t-shirts and sell them for $9 and I make a little bit of money and I don't think anybody's going to pay more than $9. Oh, they will. Trust me, they will. It's just like they'll pay $10 for craft beer, but they won't pay $10 for domestic beer. Give them a higher quality, get a higher price. So you want t-shirts that are high quality. You want t-shirts that are really going to be comfortable to wear, that fit well. So find those. Get some different products. Test them out. Figure out what you like. Figure out what your staff likes and continue to buy that brand, that product, because people will wear it more. Now, final note on merch, and this is probably the most important thing when it comes to merch in general. The way most bars do merch is they go out, they buy a bunch of product. After they buy all that product, put it on shelves in the back and it doesn't sell. And every once in a while they'll sell one, but they have this huge inventory tied up in some shelving in the office. And then to compound the issue, they have people come in that are really small. And they want a smaller, an extra small shirt. No, sorry, we only have medium, large, and extra large. They have people come in that are bigger. And they want a 3X, a 4X, a 5X. And especially in middle America, we get those folks. And when you have those folks, they want to buy a t-shirt too. And if you don't have their size, they're not going to buy it. Then it becomes, what can you do in order to have this? And the answer is very simple nowadays. It's print on demand. And so you can use Shopify, you can use different tools to get plugins for your website to sell merch on your website. And then you can use a print-on-demand company. There are tons of them out there. Research them, look at their products. They're all different. They all change all the time. Find some good print-on-demand split. Run it through your website so you have all your merch available on your website. And then buy some of the merch and put it in your restaurant. And then for the stuff that you have or the stuff that you don't have, buy one of everything and put a QR code on that product that will link to the web store where someone can purchase it. So when someone comes in, they say, hey, I really like that shirt. Do you have it in a 2XL? And you go, no, I don't. But here, let me grab this, scan this QR code into your phone. Now you're just going to click here. You can order it. It'll be at your house in a week. You've made that sale. You don't even have it on hand and you've made that sale. You've given your bartender, your server, your manager the ability to hand somebody a QR code, get it scanned, buy the product in their size. They need a 5X, great, done. They need an extra small, great, done. It'll be at your house in a few days. You have a product like a glass mug that you sell some of, but not that much, and you don't want to keep a bunch of them around. Oh, I really want 4 of those mugs. Cool. Here's the QR code, scan that. They'll be at your house in a week. Use your print on demand to sell online, push it on your social media, push it on your website, and then use QR codes so that when people see cool merch in your store and you don't have it available for sale right now in their size, in their color, whatever variation they want, they can go online and do it. And the variation part beyond size, color is huge with print on demand because using print on demand properly, you can have your logo t-shirt design. I think I had them in every size from extra small to 6X and in 7 or 8 different colors. So you could get my logo on whatever t-shirt you wanted, basically. And I could never stock all that in-house. There's no way I could stock all that. But by doing it online, having a QR code, so I'm still capturing that impulse purchase. I'm just transferring that impulse purchase from in-store to the internet. But I'm selling it immediately. I have the impulse purchase. I've made the money. I've created a walking bill. So definitely think about how can I use print on demand to sell merch and to offer more merch to my guests. So let's wrap this all up for this week. We talked about marketing. This is the first part of marketing. Next week, we're going to dive all into the online side of marketing. And you need to make sure with all your marketing, and I can't stress this enough, you need to make sure it ties in with your concept, right? Your concept is all about presenting your guests with a cohesive experience. Marketing in many ways is the external expression of your culture to your guests. So make sure your marketing fits your concept. Make sure your marketing fits your culture. You need your marketing to provide a cohesive experience. You need your marketing to speak to who you actually are, not something you're not. Because what you want people to say is, I've seen this brand. I think I understand this brand. I went there. What I thought the brand was matches what I got. Next week, as we dive into all the marketing things that exist on the internet and social media and websites and review sites and all of that, remember, that's where most people talk about, that's where most people focus, but you need to get the pieces I talked about today correct first, because the word of mouth, the community involvement, the internal marketing, those target the people in your immediate community, those build word of mouth, those can sustain a business. You still need to do the other marketing if you want to be in rocking, if you want to be in the top set of bars in your area. Don't think you can just rest on what we talked about this week alone. But if you get all this right, you build the foundation for the internet marketing. You build the foundation for your social media, and you will make sure that you have a great establishment. With that, I encourage you, go check out the book. We're actually going to be dropping a second podcast episode this week. It will be dropping tomorrow with a little preview of our audiobook. So I'm going to let you guys hear a little bit of the book, let you hear a little bit of the audiobook version, and get to experience a little bit what it is. But if you're interested in the book, links in the show notes. Go check it out. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Bar Business Podcast. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Check out our website at barbusinesspodcast.com and join our Bar Business Nation Facebook group for more strategies and tips.